Welcome back to Digesting Dark, where we are tackling the Netflix series Dark one episode at a time. For this podcast, we watched episode number 2 of season 3, titled The Survivors. And we are here to talk everything all about it. I am Zach Brooks, and I am joined by the Regina to my Tronte, Aaron Brooks. Hello, daughter.
Impossible, daughter. I think it's being so pointed at that I almost don't think it anymore.
Oh, really? Oh, so, I think it's like, I think
it's
they pretty
so
much
obvious. Like they even all but say it, but yeah. I mean, it is most likely the case. I've kind of known that for a while, I think.
Really?
So,
okay. When that was revealed, I was like, how did I never put that together? That Tronte and Claudia were basically having an affair, or were having an affair, and we never knew who Regina's father was. I was like, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I thought about it at pretty much once he showed up at her work and wanted to see her, and like then they didn't address it, but like and then that's why like when he's leaving again when Mikhail disappears, it's the same thing for Jana. So
that makes like, oh yeah, I didn't even really think about that.
Yeah. And then it's like Jana, we'll get to the scene with Jana, but that's one of my early favorite scenes of the second season, or third season, I should say.
Oh, man.
Is Jana waking up at the wake.
It is hard for me to pick a favorite scene, but there was another one in this episode that I really liked. So yeah, we'll get to it.
Yep.
So, of course, we are going through Dark one episode at a time through this season. We've already gone back and rewatched seasons 1 and 2 and done podcasts all about those through the end of season 2. So you can find those in the past on our feed. And we'll be discussing each episode of the third and final season with no knowledge of anything that comes into the future, except I did look at what the title of the next episode is, just so we can make some predictions at the end of this podcast. So make sure you do not miss an episode by subscribing on your favorite podcatcher of choice, Apple, Spotify, Google, Player.fm, any of those. You can subscribe to Digesting Dark, tell your friends, and make sure if they're watching Dark that they subscribe so they can get some little assistance because it is such a complicated story. And you can send us feedback as well. We do have an email address that we set up. It is digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. We got a ton of emails in there already, a bunch from episode 1. So we will talk about a couple of those before we get started on episode 2. But make sure you send your emails in to digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. Just be sure to put the episode number in the subject line. Otherwise, we're not going to look at it because we don't want to accidentally get spoiled. So if you can help us out by doing that, that is definitely helpful. And we'll be releasing these podcasts pretty much one episode per day. We'll let you know if we're going to take any breaks along the way. But as of right now, we're set up to talk about episode number 3 tomorrow, which is Monday, June 29th, 2020.
Yep.
All right. So let's dive in. As I said, we do have some feedback, a little bit on the episode that we recorded, and then some on the actual episodes, a couple of observations that we didn't note. So the first is some feedback on our podcast itself. A whole bunch of people wrote in to talk about the school times in Germany. We had an email from Magenta, an email from Mariki. We also had our friend @TheGeekSteve on Twitter tweet us. So all of these people let us know basically that, we were asking about the first day of school. Why is it in November? Why do they have homework assignments? They all said that the way the German school calendar works is that there is a long holiday in the fall. And so it's not actually the start of the school year. It's the first day back after like an autumn break. And Mariki points out as well that often there are subjects and presentations that are distributed at the beginning of the school year. So that might be why Bartos held on to his presentation until the first day after the holidays.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. So
yeah, I think that's basically what you said. So I was totally overanalyzing it, but glad to hear from some of our listeners in Germany to give us those contexts. And if there are other context clues along the way, we definitely don't want to be stupid Americans who have no idea how things work in Germany. So let us know. Email us.
Yeah, I remember early on, I was like searching the license plates thinking that was clues. And then I Googled what like German license plates are, and that is actually how they are.
So I noticed Tronte's license plate starts with WIN. Do all the
that's normal. Okay. It's normal to have like the town. Yeah, that's totally normal.
That actually seems like a very good system. I feel like we should have. I mean, I know we have like state-based license plates, but I feel like it should also have your city.
Yeah, Germans are very, efficient, and mechanical with their storytelling here with Dark and with their license plate tracking system. So, Two things that we can note as Americans.
Yep. Another bit of feedback on our podcast. So both Brendan Fitzpatrick and our friend Adrian Colley both wrote in to say that I totally messed up the pronunciation of the different types of plays. So they are not the two plays are not the same. One is Adrian, that is the prime play. The other one is Ariadne. So the mirror version is Ariadne. So there are two different plays, which I do think we pointed out two different plays, but I think I just kept pronouncing the names almost the same. So Ariadne is the mirror play, and Adrian is the prime play. So Adrian, the listener Adrian, I guess it's Adrienne actually is the play. Adrian is our listener, and he even gave me a pronunciation guide, which I've had some trouble with pronouncing names on podcasts this week, so appreciate it. Not just with this show, other podcasts I do as well. So, all right, and a couple other notes that I did want to definitely touch on. So Hillary also wrote in, and she had a comment that matches what we talked about. She said, when Otherworld or Alt Martha goes to see Jonas in 1888, he says you're alive and is surprised by that. But wouldn't that version of Jonas have gone through all of this and know about Altworld Martha? And when he traveled more aged until he became the stranger, how could he not remember? I think we talked about this on the podcast, but just to refresh, we're pretty sure that Jonas going to the alt world is a deviation from what always happened. And so the stranger that we're watching is actually, he never went to the alt world. He lived on after Martha was killed.
Yeah, and we see that more when he speaks with Martha in this episode.
Right. Yeah, it's reiterated even more in this episode. But so it is confirmed basically that the Jonas that we're seeing in the alt world, this is somehow a deviation and actually is changing some things, and we're seeing some progress.
Well, it could, it also could explain how there's a dead Mads showing up in both worlds. Maybe when you travel to a new world, and not only do you travel, but it duplicates yourself or makes a copy of yourself.
Oh,
that stays in the prime world.
So, that would be interesting. So there actually still is a Jonas running around 2020 who's becoming the stranger.
Well, yeah, when you go to another world, you don't actually go to you. A part of you stays. Yeah, so that exactly.
Okay. Oh, that's an interesting theory. So maybe we should have our eyes peeled for Jonas in the background.
I mean, it's
2020 scenes.
It's a little bit of a play on like something from the Prestige. Too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I didn't want to say that, but yes.
But yeah. So I won't say what. But
right. Yeah,
anybody who's seen it will know from then. Anybody who hasn't will have no idea. So I think this show may have a little bit that's borrowing from the Prestige, and not saying borrowing, but maybe just
paying homage.
Share. Not even that, but just sharing maybe because again, I have like just such Tesla vibes again with this tan house workshop and everything like that. So, and tan house was Tesla was such a big part of the Prestige. So it may just be more to do with Tesla. Maybe Tesla.
I appreciate that they are paying any kind of homage, borrowing whatever from all of my favorite movies. So the Prestige. If the Wonders show up and start playing some music, we'll know that they've actually been inside my brain to write the show. And speaking of movies that I love, Adrian Colley, not Adrian the Play, wrote in about the connections to Back to the Future Part 3, which I definitely felt. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he pointed out an old time traveler stuck in the late 19th century trying to get back despite the primitive tech of the time, and has a youthful sidekick named Marty/Martha who arrives to help rescue him, and an assumed name that people would recognize from a century later. And so, yes, I appreciate him saying that. I don't know if that's really backed up by what we see in the second episode. I think we were a little bit off on him assuming an identity, which we'll talk about. And the other piece of feedback that he had, just an interesting note, I think, is that what we were dubbing the three ninjas, so the three people who are the three different times, that trio, the actors among them share a family name. So they are probably related as well. And that's really good casting because you get three people who are going to look alike because they're in the same family.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't really watch the credits, but that's a nice note from the credits. So that is what we got from episode number 1, the feedback we had from episode number 1. We will get into episode number 2 feedback as well. And then on the next podcast, anything that comes in between the two, we'll talk about that.
Yep. Thank you for anybody who's writing in too. If we didn't get to your questions, we got a lot more than we were expecting.
Yeah,
So
yes, it's awesome to get this much feedback, and now we have to go through it. We'll have to see if the feedback keeps coming in at this rate. We might have to even pause after like midway through the season, maybe around episode 4, depending on how the season goes, and just do, like stop down and do a full feedback show mid-season or something.
yeah.
But we'll see. We'll kind of cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yep. Sounds good. Let's get into this episode.
All right. So before we actually get into the episode, I want to complain about something.
Okay.
The end of the episode has this big character tree that is revealed, a family tree that old Martha, who I guess we're calling Eve, Eve shows to Jonas, and we see both worlds and the big character tree and how everybody's related. I feel like this was like seeing the spoilers for me.
Why do you feel? Yeah, you said this. I guess I'll let you rant because I didn't feel.
Yeah, I mean,
about
it just like it's got a lot of stuff that we know, but it has a lot of connections and parentage that we don't know on it. And I think there's one big thing that's confirmed on this, and I think my eyes were drawn to it because Agnes Nielsen is right in the center, so she's the first connection off of the infinity sign in the middle of that character chart.
Mm-hmm.
So her brother, who we know as Noah, but he actually has another name. And his name is Hanno Tuber, it looks like, on this character map. Mm-hmm. And it appears, based on this character map, that he is Bartos' son. So it looks like Bartos and somebody named Silja are going to be the parents of Hanno Tuber and Agnes Nielsen.
And we don't know who Silja is, or do we? Is Silja Scarface?
I think Silja might be Alt Martha, but I don't know. We don't know who that is.
Okay. I think Silja is either Scarface or Alt Martha. Mm-hmm. That would be my guess.
Yeah. The thing about Alt Martha is if this is a deviation, then she didn't always come back. So we definitely don't know anybody named Silja. We also don't know why Bartos' son goes by the last name Hanno Tuber, or the full name Hanno Tuber. So Tuber is not Bartos' last name because he's listed on there as Tiedemann. Mm-hmm. And Agnes goes by Agnes Nielsen, which I guess could be that she was married to somebody and took on the Nielsen name.
Right.
But there were a couple other things on there. That was the really big one. Did you pause it? Did you pause the...
I did, but like I wasn't able to take too much other... I did notice that, but I didn't find too much that I didn't already know.
Yeah, I guess that was the big one. I just really love the way that they reveal character connections in this show, as we'll see with a couple that were revealed in this episode. Yeah, I don't know. I just would have liked to have gotten that differently. But I guess I guess there's not that much, and maybe Hanno Tuber will end up being somebody else and not Noah. Mm. Although if Noah is Bartos' son, that connects almost every family through Bartos, because that connects the Tiedemans to the Nielsens. Of course, the Nielsens are already connected to the Conwalds, and then Noah is the father of Charlotte, so that connects to the Dopplers as well. Mm-hmm. And it adds a really nice dimension onto both old Noah being with Bartos in the first season in the back of the car, but then also the opening to season 2, where we're assuming old Bartos is killed by Noah.
Right.
And that makes that scene not just like a person and their apprentice, but actually like a father and son digging out the tunnel together.
Yeah, that would add quite a bit. So, I mean, I'm not like, I don't hate that being revealed there. Like, and I think like we still don't know who Silja is. So
that's true.
Or maybe we do, but I don't think we do. But if I had to
there's
guess,
definitely not been a character named Silja.
Okay, there hasn't. Okay.
No, I mean, maybe it's somebody who lives in 1888. And on the second watch, I didn't hate it as much as on the first watch. I was like really annoyed. I was kind of annoyed with myself for pausing it. I was like, I couldn't resist temptation, and I had to pause it and look.
Yeah, I didn't pause it on my first watch. I paused it on the second watch.
Yeah.
But...
And very interesting, I think, too. And when we get to, we'll talk more about it when we get to the scene. But Agnes being right in the middle, one step removed from the infinity sign, considering we don't know where Agnes came from. She just showed up in town in the first season. Agnes clearly is an important character in this show.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that was my little rant. If people, I don't know, don't write us if you got other things from the character chart, or do write us. I don't know. If you think there's super spoiler things that I'm going to get mad about, don't write us about it. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so let's get into the actual episode. So we open with Jonas and Martha. It's a dream. It looks like it's Jonas and Martha having sex, and some bloody hands, the St. Christopher coin, and Martha wakes up in 1888 with the stranger staring at her, and he has a letter. So she must have given him a letter that somebody wrote addressed to Jonas. I don't think this is the case, but that wasn't Jonas's room, right? This isn't like an old, like a 100-year-old version of Jonas's room.
No, but it is like where Jonas wakes up in Erna's house when Noah's watching him.
Oh, this is
in
Erna's
season
house.
2.
Okay.
I think it's this. I believe so because once the stranger wakes her up, he has her like clothes folded, just like the stranger had when Adam was waiting there when he woke up in 1920. When Jonas woke up, he had like his like yellow jacket and all his clothes folded up, and then like was like waiting for him. The stranger's doing that with Martha here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 33 years earlier. The same thing's happening again.
So we do know. It seems like from what we get later in the episode that this Tannenhouse residence is probably where the church ends up being, because it's right above the Sigmundes headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
So either this becomes the church or gets torn down. At least that's my impression. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And so then they go out into the main, I don't know, lobby, I guess you'd call it. And Bartos, Magnus, Francisca, they are all there. And she's, they're introducing Martha, strangers introducing Martha and she's explaining why she's there. She says that she's there so that you don't die in my world and so that I don't die in yours. And the stranger explains this is not Martha, even though it is a version of Martha. It's just not the Martha they know.
Mm-hmm.
And she references Ulrich, Dad, Mikkel is what she says. She doesn't want any of those people to die in either world.
Yeah, and we confirmed that Francesca is indeed a mute and not a woman, as you said. So.
Yes, she is a mute. So point for me on that one. And I don't know. I really like this. I like seeing all of the like modern characters in old-fashioned clothing. I mean, it was one thing to see the stranger in that, but to see these kids who, just in season 1 are like normal high school kids, and now they're all dressed up in these like 1880s clothes. I don't know. I just thought it was like very cool to see them in a different setting.
Yeah, I like this setting a lot.
All right, so then we get our title scene, and you were right on this. Both the D and the R are backwards when it shows dark in the titles.
Yep, the A is a capital A, so we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, and the K is going the correct direction. The reason why I was confused is because on the Netflix menu, just the R is backwards, but the D is not backwards on the Netflix menu.
I think the D being backwards is new to this season, so in general, it's only been the R backwards.
Oh, okay, so the R has been backwards in previous seasons.
I think so, but I don't know.
And you were also right. It's definitely like birthing and vaginal imagery that they're showing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's very, very clear. So showing us quite a bit. And then we go, we start on the morning of September 22nd, 1987. We're seeing Mikkel's room. We see the Captain Future comics. We see the Goonies. We see a robot toy, which is probably from something. I'm not sure what it's from.
It's all the same setup that Michael had back in the 80s when he's sleeping there.
Right. So just letting us know that we're in like an 80s teen boy's bedroom.
Yep.
And we hear You Spin Me Round, which of course we heard in the bunker when the kids are strapped for the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not Michael who's waking up in that room. It is Katerina waking up, and she's in some bright colored clothing. And she is in the house of Enos and Michael. She walks downstairs and she's got like dark colors on in a backpack. I noticed a lot of characters are looking very strangery now. They're not wearing bright colors anymore. They've got backpacks, jackets. They're all dressed kind of the way the stranger was dressed in season.
And isn't she? Someone's mistaken for the Jonas later in the episode, right? Someone's in a hood. I believe it may be Peter or something, and they think it's Jonas at first, and then they realize it. I don't remember who. I should have made note of it.
Yeah,
but definitely someone's definitely. I don't remember who, but either way, it goes with your point. That's that a lot of characters are starting to resemble the
Yeah,
stranger.
everybody's got their hood up. I mean, part of that is that in the 2020 timeline, it's raining all the time, so they're all wearing like big dark ponchos. But we're just seeing what we saw in the first season with just really the stranger and Helge looking like that. We're seeing more characters looking that way and losing color and brightness that we've had.
I think it's just another play on the deeper into the abyss you get, the more you lose yourself type of thing. So everybody's becoming a stranger to themselves as they get deeper into this.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing people. I mean, it's crazy to think about how deep like so many characters get at this point versus in season 1, it was just a couple characters who were traveling. Now everybody in this town basically has traveled and is like starting new lives in different places and really is deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of narration here where the phone company calls and leaves a message. We get a happy Enos and Michael. They left their answering machine running. It's the phone company, very meta, the phone company calling to say that they've missed payments for 3 months and that they will be shutting off the phone in the next month if they do not pay.
Yep.
And we see Katerina has been working on some Mikkel posters, some posters that Mikkel is missing. Those posters say that he's been missing for 3 months. And then
I think they say Michael Conwald on him too.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah, she does call him Michael because nobody knows who Mikkel is.
Mm-hmm.
And as she's leaving, we see the glass to the door was broken, so that must have been how she got in. And I mean, I think we could probably stop here and just kind of talk about at least this that Katerina has been in 1987 for 3 months now because she came in June, and it seems like as soon as she got there, Michael and Enos were gone.
Yeah, they've been gone since. Yeah, they've been gone, and that's addressed later in the episode.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. But I guess Katerina just kind of started living in this house since they've been gone and has been spending 3 months trying to figure out where they are. Doesn't seem like she's made very much progress considering she's been there for 3 months.
Yeah, I mean,
made posters.
Yeah, she's adjusting.
Yeah. All right, so then I'm sure this was one of your favorite parts, and I know the next part was your favorite part. So we see Mads' grave, which you've been very interested in. There's the toy, which it reminds me of He-Man, but I think we actually found out what toy it was from. It's from some 80s German show.
Okay, I thought it was Master of the Universe. It is from.
I think it's from a different. I think that's what we originally thought, but I'm pretty sure it's from a different show. So somebody can write in and let us know what show that's from if they know. And we hear somebody talking to Jana, talking about getting some closure. We're seeing the grave, and then we see a wake going on in Jana and Trante's home. Interesting. We don't see Ulrich during this, but we see a lot of other people there. It seems like they're finally accepting that he's gone, he's missing. They're having a funeral for him, and I don't know exactly if the timeline works out, but I'm assuming that this is 1 year after he disappeared.
Yeah, I think so.
So, and at first I thought that, okay, this is, it's on this anniversary that Jana always goes and changes out the toy on the grave. But that doesn't seem like that's the case because in season 1, we're in November, not in September.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I don't know if we're going to get more about the toy. I mean, we saw that toy. We saw another version of the toy at their home as well. So, maybe it's just that Jana changes the toy every time a child disappears to honor him. I don't think we quite know yet.
Yeah, I hope we find out more, though, because they definitely showed him again.
So, and this was the part that you really liked, where Jana finally yells at Trante and accuses him, and confronts him about his affair with Claudia, and wants him to tell everybody that he was actually with Claudia when Mads disappeared.
Yeah, not only that, but reveals how since they've both gone missing, which is, around the same time, he's been more worried about where she went than where he went.
Right.
And,
so Claudia's been missing for 3 months now because she also disappeared right before the end of the last season. So 3 months before this. And she has all this evidence. It's newspaper articles. I guess it's probably articles he wrote about her.
I mean,
the newspaper.
Yeah. And I think it was just articles on her that he had been trying to hide from her. And just showing he's become obsessed like Ulrich with finding Claudia, though.
Right, obsessed with finding Claudia, but is not really doing anything for Mads.
No, they're and talks about how it's I hope you have peace. Fine, we're celebrating an empty grave.
Right.
So,
all right. So, anything else on this scene that you want to talk about?
No, I just thought it was like a really just like emotionally like kind of powerful scene, and like from a character we haven't had a lot from in Jana. So
Right.
that gives some context to why Jana is so suspicious and untrustworthy when it happens again when Mikkel goes disappearing,
Hmm.
and then Shrante is not there and he's lying about where he is and everything. So some things never change.
Hmm. And I guess Ulrich is not there because he's at school. But it's just weird. I mean, it's weird they would have this on a. I guess they would. I guess you would have funerals whenever, but that Ulrich wouldn't attend this funeral.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where he was.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just a narrative thing because he needs to be in the school for the scene that we're going to have coming up to happen, or if there's maybe more to it that he's not close with his family over this. So we'll have to follow that and see.
Yeah.
All right, then we go up to September 22nd in 2020, and we are seeing somebody in black going to the boarded up police station. It's all destroyed. We get more narration over the radio. Your favorite person, the radio commentator, talking about the catastrophe. They mentioned that French scientists are looking into what happened. They've traced it back to Winden. They think possibly the world stood still for a fraction of a nanosecond.
Yep.
And I immediately, when I saw French scientists, I'm like, why do they have to say French? Well, we have the French delegation. We have the French man that was hung in the future world in 2053. So could possibly this French delegation meeting that Claudia kept postponing and not meeting with in the last season, maybe these are French time travelers who go back and are trying to stop it?
Yeah, definitely could be. Or something that's really important to the maintenance of the power plant, maybe, that she keeps putting off.
Yeah, and I think we did have feedback on the last episode about just the role of the French with nuclear power, and that they were trying to get their own nuclear power and trying to sustain it for themselves. So maybe it's just that, but it just seems odd that they would specifically mention French scientists in this scene.
Yeah, and talked about how like airplanes all stopped flying.
Yes.
So I think I just immediately thought of the birds.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. The birds that is it's like a version of the birds crashing. So we also have global tidal waves, electrical outages. Clearly, Winden doesn't seem like it stopped raining in 3 months.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're seeing an early version of what we saw in 2053 in this town.
Yeah.
Who did you think before we saw who was actually walking into the police station? Did you have any guess on who that was?
I thought like maybe I'm not sure who I thought originally. Maybe I thought maybe it was like Alt Helge somehow or something that had like traveled. I was like, just because like but I just kind of think of the stranger Helge when I think of that.
See, I thought it was going to be Charlotte. And I actually, even when she took off her hood, I at first thought it was Charlotte, and wrote down, "Oh, it's Charlotte," and then had to delete it when I saw, "Oh no, actually it's Claudia." So Claudia is visiting Regina.
I was thinking of the one with Peter, anyways.
Oh, when you saw Peter earlier. Yeah. So this one was Claudia. She's got some medicine for Regina. And it looks like that she's using the police station as like a makeshift hospital for Regina.
Yep.
And I noted on my second watch, Regina is bathed in red light in this. Some of the only color we really get. So she spends just like the briefest of time with Regina. Regina's like, "Oh, you're leaving already?" And Claudia says, "I'll be back before sundown." Doesn't seem like the sun is really out at all. I don't know how do you determine when sundown is? It's just dreary there all the time.
Yeah, slightly less dreary time.
Yeah. And Claudia did not listen to her own advice. She's not taking advantage of the time that she has with Regina, because this is the last time she's going to see her daughter.
Good.
All right. So then we also see Elizabeth exiting the trailer. She's with Peter. They're walking over to the power plant. So this is Bernadette's old trailer? Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And
we once again, like hitting, we don't know where Bernadette is, but there's some connection between Peter and Bernadette more than just that, because Francesca is also connected to him. There's a connection between Waller and them and Peter.
I'm curious if we're gonna. I do not think we're getting anything else on Bernadette anymore. I think it's just that Bernadette died during the explosion. And they knew about the trailer. It was a place for them to hide that was not destroyed, and so they're in the trailer.
That could be.
I hope so, though. I would like to know more about that, because it seems like we've gotten just like little glimpses of Bernadette throughout this show.
Yeah, I agree.
So they go to the power plant. There's planes flying overhead, which definitely reminded me of the 2053 timeline. The military has it all locked down. There's a guy there. Peter presents him with some paper that he scans, and the man lets him know that in 5 days, this will all be closed off. So they're building the wall that we see in 2053 in 5 days to close off the dead zone.
Yep.
And the man says, "Why are you doing this to her?" Referring to Elizabeth. And we know that Peter, basically, this is an area for people to go to identify the bodies, I guess. I don't know why you would want to go to like a blown up nuclear reactor. It seems like that would be full of radiation, but apparently that's what people are doing to identify the bodies.
Yeah.
And we see somebody following them. So this is the person that you thought might be Helge?
Yeah, no, I thought that Peter, when he first was taking the boards down before they showed him, I thought that was Helge.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't know who that was, but I knew that was Noah once they showed him. But
right, yeah. So this is Noah behind them. We really can't see his face, obviously. And of course, the last time we saw Noah was in the bunker with Regina and Claudia and Peter and Elizabeth.
Yep.
Then in 1888, we get Martha talking more about the alternate world. This is where she reveals that Francisca is mute. And she says, "We're all dead because the world ends." Magnus does not get it. He says, "I'm not dead. I'm here." So yeah. Good job, Magnus. They're asking, "How did you find us?" And Martha says, "Jonas told me." So that opens the question, how did Jonas know? She says he traveled from your world to mine, but the version of Jonas that we saw that traveled there would have no idea that the future version of them is in 1888.
So someone who was posing as Jonas told her that.
Or an older version of Jonas was my thought.
Or an older version, yeah.
I think it's Adam that might have told her.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow that she knew. I mean, there's just seems like a lot of things that Martha knows that we don't quite know how she knows them, and that in turn Jonas knows. And the stranger, he brings up what some of the listeners have brought up and what we said. He said, "I don't believe you because I would remember, and I never traveled there." So this version of the stranger definitely is not the same older version of Jonas, unless he has like amnesia about his time in the alternate world.
Yeah, it's got to be that, or that a copy's made or something.
Yeah, I think the copy being made is a very interesting thought. I didn't really put that together. I just thought we were actually seeing progress here.
Yeah, I still don't believe it, but maybe.
Mm-hmm. And so the stranger starts yelling at her. He's clearly like much more angry and violent than he was in the other version of the stranger we saw. Were much more calm and deliberate with his actions. And he kind of lashes out at her. He wants to know if Adam sent her.
If she wrote the letter. Yeah,
if she wrote the letter. We still don't know who wrote this letter to Jonas. We didn't even see her give the letter to Jonas. It must have just been either he found it in her stuff or she gave it to him after the cameras were not rolling anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and before they can be interrupted, he says, "What did you use to travel?" But then they're interrupted by an old man. He's an old blind man. He comes in. He's got like a top hat and a cane. I don't know. He reminds me of somebody. Maybe it's just like Mr. Scrooge or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, he says, "You're late today. The machines aren't running." So he's clearly like put them to work. And he can tell that Martha is there, that somebody is there. He says, "You're the reason that his mood is worse."
Tells the stranger that there's a visitor there for him.
Mm-hmm. And he says that he's not right.
A visitor.
He told the stranger there's a visitor?
Yeah, that's why the stranger leaves the room. Says there's a visitor here for you.
Oh, I feel like I missed that both times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says that's why he leaves the room. And then, so we don't know if he's saying who he's referring to as being the one in the worst shape, maybe, or in the worst mood. Maybe it's the stranger he's referring to, or the visitor, maybe, who's there.
Interesting. Okay,
he tells the stranger, that's why a stranger leaves the room.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I just did not put that together at all. But I guess I didn't even, I just figured the stranger left the room because he needed to go to work, I think.
No, he said, "You have a visitor." And then he storms off to go see him, and then he closes the door, and then that's when he says he's in an extra foul mood today because of you. Or something. That's why.
Okay, yeah. So I thought that was referring to Martha being there and the stranger being in an extra foul mood, but
It might be referring to a stranger, but they aren't very. They
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So who was the visitor that he had?
Yeah,
that's definitely something to watch. But we get this old man. He kind of has like glazed over eyes, similar to, these bright blue eyes that we've seen other characters having, like Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he's not right in the head, but he can see more than you see.
Yep.
So, and this is Old Man Tannhaus. So unfortunately, I was wrong when I said that the stranger went to the past and then took the identity of Tannhaus and is going to end up being Tannhaus's son or Tannhaus's father and all of this. It seems like this man is probably going to end up being Tannhaus's father or grandfather.
Yeah, it appears.
Or could be a version of Tannhaus that traveled back in time.
That was my thought too.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely something with Tannhaus. We find out more about him being the creator of Sigmundes later on in the episode. But it will be interesting to see the Tannhaus lineage and how that ties into everything. And it's good. I think you were the one that you said, did you say that you thought Tannhaus was nefarious from the beginning?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It seems like
you wanted to rewatch.
Yep. Yeah. So this is a good episode. It's a good episode, but this was a good scene. Where we get a lot of explanation of where things are and some confirmation on things.
Mm-hmm.
Then back in, I wrote 1887. I meant 1987. We have Katerina handing out flyers in the school. So, this is, Ulrich needed to be here apparently instead of the funeral for his brother. And she sees Ulrich. She says his name because she realizes who it is. Ulrich has a broken nose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's important, or do you think it's just like a thing they just added to him to make him look different?
I don't know. Maybe I didn't really think of it. I didn't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
Notice it too much.
I immediately was like, oh, how did he break his nose?
Yeah.
Could just be like Waller's eye. How did Waller lose his eye?
Or maybe he gets arrested again at some point. And
maybe Egon did it.
Mm-hmm.
Or wait, no, I guess not, because Egon is dead at this point. But another cop could have done it.
Yeah, he could have stayed in trouble with the cops.
Mm-hmm. So Ulrich mentions that maybe the lunatic, she's asking where Michael Conwald is. And Ulrich says maybe the lunatic got him. Of course, when he's talking about the lunatic at first, I was like, oh, lunatic, all right, new person. No, the lunatic he's talking about is the older version of himself that's in the psychiatric ward.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other kids come up. We see Katerina see the young version of herself, and she's just like hardcore making out with Ulrich. And Hannah is trying to break them up, of course, because Hannah has a thing for Ulrich. And to get Katerina's attention, she uses her full name. So we finally get Katerina's last name, her maiden name. It is Albers.
Mm-hmm.
It's Katerina Albers, which is a good setup. I was glad that we got this, but it was a very clear setup for the scene that we're going to get later on in the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is part of what happens when you have 8 episodes or 7 episodes left in the series.
Yeah, you just have to start giving this stuff out a little quicker.
A little bit.
So this is when Katerina says that she remembers. So she remembers this moment, obviously, from when she was younger. It's unclear if, this is the kind of thing, sort of like Michael seeing the yellow jacket, where she had blocked out a lot of stuff, and then all of a sudden, seeing one thing just triggers her memory of what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's similar to that.
Mm-hmm. And so Ulrich and Katerina, young Katerina, leave to go to class, and young Katerina is staring at older Katerina. Again, it's probably that deja vu, somehow I recognize you, but I'm not sure exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
And Hannah stays behind and is talking to Katerina, the young Hannah. She tells her about Ulrich escaping and says that the lunatic escaped from the mental hospital and took Michael to the caves last summer. And Katerina, probably causing what she is trying to prevent, tells Hannah, you stay the hell away from Mikkel and Ulrich.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Hannah seems kind of weirded out by this, and I would imagine that if Hannah was not interested in Ulrich, or maybe not interested in Michael anymore, all of a sudden this might reignite that rebellious streak in Hannah and give her a reason to reconnect.
Yep, it's the exact opposite of your intentions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Katerina apparently still has not learned that you can't change things in the past. This is always going to happen.
Yep.
But I guess that would tie in with her trying to bring Mikkel back. That she can't bring Mikkel back, because if she did, then all of this could never have happened in the first place.
Yeah, and it's just like Jonas tries to change things still. Like everybody trying to change things when they know they can't, yet they still do. It's like the human curse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we've got Tronte. He's at the power plant. We see high heels and a red dress walking towards him, and it is Claudia's secretary, who we're gonna find out her name is Jasmine.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying she already told the police everything she knew about Claudia disappearing, and asked if this is for the newspaper. And Tronte is just trying to ask her more questions about Claudia and anything that happened the week that she disappeared. And this is a great detail that the secretary mentions, that usually Claudia was so interested in her appearance, which is something that we did see. She's criticizing Regina's appearance. She's doing makeup in her car. I mean, she really was very put together and cared a lot about her appearance. And the fact that she wore the same thing twice in the same week really pulled some red flags for her.
Yeah, and then we see how Claudia looks in the future. She clearly doesn't care about how she looks.
Right. Yes, exactly. No, that is old Claudia, old in the past Claudia, not older Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
And so the secretary, Jasmine, also mentions that she noticed a big change the day that the old woman showed up at the power plant and had the dog.
Yep.
And she thought it was weird that the woman said that dog was hers, but then didn't take the dog with her. Now, it seemed like she was saying that old Claudia brought the dog to the power plant. Wasn't the dog already there? Because didn't young Claudia already find the dog?
Yeah, but when she showed up, she the dog came to her and she grabbed the dog.
Yeah, she was holding the dog, but she didn't bring the dog to the power plant. The dog was already at the power plant.
I don't think she did.
Okay. Yeah, maybe she just misspoke, or I was trying to remember that because I was like, I thought that young Claudia, middle-aged Claudia, actually found.
I think that I'm pretty sure Jasmine walked in as they were talking, and old Claudia holding the dog.
Okay.
And told Jasmine that was hers.
Yeah.
And then leaves without it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so she says that something changed in Claudia after that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we know that because that's when Claudia learned about time travel and started becoming this woman, and didn't care about didn't care about kind of these petty things like her appearance.
Yep.
I don't know, and I am not trying to criticize Jasmine's appearance. Was she supposed to be pregnant, or was it just kind of the way her dress was fitting?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter because she gets killed in this episode, but I thought maybe she was pregnant. At this point, I thought maybe she's pregnant with somebody and she's going to end up being somebody's parent.
I don't think so.
Might have just been the way her dress was like kind of bunched up.
Or she might have been pregnant, but I don't think it was important.
Right, yeah, I mean, it can't be because she's going to end up dead.
Yeah.
So, and we don't know anything else about her except we learn her name is Jasmine, but we don't know how she's connected to anybody. We just get a name for her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's Janikowski's. Never mind. Nope, she's not Janikowski's mother. So, no connection. All right. In 2020, we see Claudia making her own version of the character chart. This is the one that we saw at the beginning of the show in season 1. And she's got like the 3 pictures of Tronte and a couple pictures of Regina, a picture of Jonas, Martha. And it doesn't seem like she's going to get very much further in this character chart because it doesn't look much further completed in season 1 when we see it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the same way the bunker is decorated in season 1. We see like the animals hanging, the gas mask, guns. So lots of stuff that we saw in the first season.
Yep.
And then we cut right from that to Peter looking at photos on the wall as well. These are much more neatly arranged. It's photos of all the people who died during the incident at the end of the second season.
Yep.
So R.I.P. to Eric's dad. R.I.P. to Clausen. R.I.P. to Waller. R.I.P. to Alexander. Anybody that you're significantly upset is dead?
No, not really. Like, I mean, it was everybody we kind of already knew had died in this.
Yeah.
So, the one of the Wallers, was that Bernadette just her actual name?
Oh, I didn't notice.
It showed Benjamin Waller.
I think that's the Waller that we knew. Like that's the police Waller.
No, because it wasn't the picture. No, because if you go back and look, it's the first 2 they show next to each other. They show Waller next to, I believe, I should have written it down, but
I didn't know. So you saw Bernadette in one of these pictures?
I thought I did, but maybe I didn't.
Well, Benjamin
because they
Waller,
showed.
If
Yeah.
actually that would make sense because they call Bernadette Benny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they show, and it was, I mean, maybe just when the explosion happened, it was like they went back to their government names or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would make sense.
So yeah, Benjamin Waller was shown. So
Okay.
okay.
So I thought because I definitely saw Waller and I just assumed that was the same. So yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that.
Mhm.
So I'm not sad for any of the characters. I mean, I like Waller. I am sad for seemingly storylines that felt like they were building towards something that now are apparently dead, like Clausen and why was he in Winden? Where did he come from? Alexander. I guess we'll get more of Alexander. We'll see him in the past, but and then Waller's eye. I don't think we're ever finding out about Waller's eye.
Nope. But it definitely is gone. They confirmed that. They show it.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. It's not there. So he wasn't just pretending to not have an eye.
No, that would be quite the con if he was. Yeah. All right. So then there's no picture of Charlotte, no Francisca up on the wall.
Nope.
So.
And I just put this together again, but there's only 2 redheads in the whole show, and it's Eric and Francisca. So, and because they describe her as a redhead,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like another reason why I don't know if she quite belongs to that family.
Oh, I mean, it would make sense because it's weird that she's like the one, the daughter that's not also the grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like the soldiers seemed like they recognized Elizabeth or were like taken aback by Elizabeth?
Yeah, I got that vibe too, or they were told she was coming, something, because they looked at her. Yeah, there's a lot of contact between characters and unspoken words. So, and that was like one of them where they looked at her, and I think maybe when they're saying, "Why would you do this to her?" they're referring to what she becomes and why she becomes it because of what they're doing. Maybe I don't know.
Okay, I took that line as just like, don't take your daughter to go see like a bunch of.
I think it could work on both levels. So, then even just jump back to when Martha is telling the travelers and everything about what's happening. She's looking at the stranger a couple times, like knowing he's about to react. It looks like. So if you go back and watch that scene, she'll say nothing and look at him, knowing how he's going to react to what she's about to say. So maybe it's because Adam's giving her certain things to say without her realizing it. They're setting up things to keep going the way they were supposed to.
Oh, yeah, that could be. I took some of that in the way the stranger acts, that he's just becoming more, he's descending more and more into Adam madness.
Yeah, exactly. That could be too.
And so, if Adam gave her this information, that's because this is like another role that Martha needs to play, that Martha needs to get the stranger to become Adam. And so she needs to, like, he never would have become Adam if Martha never would have come back.
Yep.
So I guess, that's when you think about it, and we'll get more clarity, obviously, but that's like 2 conflicting things. Either Jonas never went to the alt world, or this alt world interaction always happened and always turned the stranger into Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get more clarity on that. Then we see more pictures on the wall, but this time in 1987, we're in the police station, and we see posters of Claudia, that Claudia is missing, and Egon, that Egon died under mysterious circumstances. So the cops are looking for information from that. This was a really good scene where we have Katerina. She runs into the police station, or walks in the police station, I guess, and she's yelling at this cop that we do not have any name for, any information about, wanting to know where her son is. And he says that it's interesting that she says it's her son when she has no identification, no birth certificate, nothing to prove that Mikkel/Michael is actually her son.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking to her and saying, she's asking about the lunatic, and she wants to know why she didn't hear about the lunatic. And she says she even remembers hearing about that happen. She says she remembers her mother telling her about that. And the cop says that Child Protective Services know where they know where Innes and Michael are, and that the lunatic has been returned to the ward where he has been for 34 years. And then she says, she's like taken aback and like set off and wants him to, she's like, what did you say? And I'm not sure exactly what set her off at that point. Was it the fact that he mentioned 34 years and she put together that Ulrich went back to the 50s?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And
Okay.
She realized that he's been stuck there for 30 years.
So did she know? Because I know there was like all the time where they're explaining time travel in the bunker in the last season. Was Katerina there, and did they tell Katerina that Ulrich was in the 50s?
I think so. Yeah, I think that was like one of the many things they bombarded her with.
Okay, so hearing that a guy has been there for 34 years, she puts it together that must be Ulrich.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and this is like very much mirroring when Ulrich is in the 50s, going to Egon, telling him about looking for his son.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So,
and
I
when
think that
Eric's dad is
I think Katerina's going to end up, and I think Katerina's going to end up in the mental institution in the 80s and stuck there till 2019.
Oh, all right. So. That's not what I think is going to happen, but we'll get to that. Before we do, though, what do you think about Michael and Ines being taken by Child Protective Services to protect him after he was nearly kidnapped last summer?
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's, again, the system kind of being used to keep Mikkel where he is now.
Do you think it's that, or do you think they're like? Do you think it's just as open and shut as like they're under Child Protective Services care and they're out of the picture? Do you think they like might be traveling, or there could be something else going on? Like I'm just like I'm not sure if I just straight up buy like, oh, okay, they're just like witness protection.
What else would you think? I didn't really have any other.
We don't know much about Ines, but if Ines is more involved in this, like, could they be traveling at different times and doing different things right now?
Yeah, they could be. I mean, we haven't gotten anything with Ines to make us think she's anything more than just kind of the pawn she is. So,
right.
If she's more of a factor, then maybe. But I didn't have those thoughts till you.
Yeah, I don't. We just don't know enough about Ines right now, and it could be really that like logistically, the actor who plays Mikkel is too old to be on this show, so they just had to be like, yeah, they're gone for this season.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Having watched Lost, that happened a couple times on Lost with child actors. So, yeah, I guess we'll see if Katerina is trying to find him, but now she knows Ulrich is also there and that he's in the mental institution. Then we see Tronte driving his red VW car, and he drives past the bus stop. As soon as I saw that bus stop, I was like, okay, yeah, somebody's going to be in there. And, of course, it is. It is Regina. She's sitting there with Gretchen. And he offers them a ride, and as they're driving, Tronte recognizes Gretchen, or at least that the dog looks a lot like Gretchen. And he's asking Regina questions about, what happened the week before her mother disappeared, asks if she ever mentioned an old lady. Of course, that's the older version of Claudia. And it's at one point, Regina asks if she can get out of the car and walk the rest of the way. Yeah,
and then before she gets out, Tronte looks at her and the kind of ominous music plays. Says, "If you ever need anything done for you, I'm here for you." So, and like stares at her and says like, "Whatever you need." So, I think this comes back when he ends up killing her, and just like overall his dedication to helping Claudia. It's like mirroring Hannah's obsession with Ulrich.
Tronte's obsession with Claudia. Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
I like that. I like that circle that completes. So we see in 2020, Claudia has the machine and the liquid capsule. It looks like that liquid capsule is empty. So something that we're getting into a lot in this season is the fact that these time machines do not have any fuel. So in the 1880s, we don't have any fuel for the time machine. It seems like Claudia doesn't have any time machine for the liquid. So she's recording what Jonas listens to at the beginning of season 2, those tapes. And she's recording from the bunker and talks about if they can just stabilize the God particle, they can go back and fix everything. And this is what, this recording is what Jonas is listening to is like sacred text for how he can get back from 2053 to his time. But Claudia doesn't really know anything either at this point. So it's like she records these tapes saying, all we got to do is stabilize the God particle and we can fix this. Well, she doesn't really know anything. And then Jonas goes to try to stabilize the God particle based on what she's saying, like she knows something. But we're seeing now that really she doesn't know anything.
Blind leading the blind.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, and it seems like, it does kind of make things a little less complicated, the fact that people can't really travel using these machines because none of them have any fuel. And then we see Peter and Elizabeth. They are going and searching the Conwald house. Looks like they're just searching everywhere for Francisca and Charlotte.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the stop is taking them to the Conwald house. Elizabeth stays downstairs. She sees the different pictures on the table. And Noah walks in. and removes his mask. So we see it is young Noah, and they are. I did note here too that we don't see Martha's body on the ground, which she should be there. Her body should be there, unless somebody took it.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody took it for food, because they are looking for food.
Indeed.
So we see a moment between Noah and Elizabeth. I was kind of expecting Noah and Elizabeth to already be in love at this point, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems like they're just sort of know each other. And so they're signing and then writing things down. So Elizabeth says that she's looking for her mom and sister, and she asks Noah where he sleeps. And Noah says that he sleeps in the cave. And then Peter comes down and interrupts him. This was an interesting dynamic, because this is like the father being mad at the, not liking his daughter's boyfriend, but it's also the son-in-law, Noah's son-in-law, getting mad at him.
Yeah. It's all sorts of messed up.
Yeah. So Peter says he wants nothing to do with him. Now, is this because Peter we don't really know what the relationship is between Peter and Noah at this point.
No.
He'd
already said no to him.
Right. Yeah. He had already told him, so I guess after they were protected in the bunker, they just told him to get out of there, and they didn't want anything to do with him. And I guess because they must know that he's Noah and he will become this guy that is allegedly the bad guy that they think.
Yep.
And it's an interesting situation, because Noah says that he wants to protect her, Elizabeth, and knows that Peter also wants to protect Elizabeth.
Yep.
And Noah says to Peter, I will protect her after you're killed. And apparently this is the part that Elizabeth didn't hear him say. Elizabeth doesn't know that he said that, because he didn't sign it. He just says it to Peter.
Right.
So Chekhov's Peter getting killed, that is definitely happening at some point in the next few episodes, I would think. It's a question of how is Peter killed? Who kills him?
Question of when.
Yes, and when. That's the other one. So yeah, we'll see. Elizabeth seems like she's intrigued by the mystery man that is going to be Noah. Of course,
and she writes down mom's sister cave. So eventually it's going to lure her to the cave.
Yes. Oh yeah. We see her looking at that later on in the episode. She's definitely going to go to the cave. And we'll see what happens there. It's also interesting because Noah is protecting Elizabeth, because old Noah told him, this is going to be your wife. You have to protect her.
Yep.
So the only reason, his motivation is because of future knowledge of what happens between them.
Or future knowledge that's been planted of what he believes happens. So then it does happen.
Then we go back to 1888. We see the Tannenhaus machine factory is what it says.
Yep.
And Bartos comes into Martha's room, and he says pretty much what we were mentioning, that since they got there, Jonas has changed, thus becoming more like Adam. And Bartos mentions that they traveled at the exact moment everything was destroyed and everything happened in Winden, and now their machine is empty. So another Back to the Future reference: nuclear material is hard to come by. That is almost exactly the phrase from Back to the Future 1. Doc says to Marty, plutonium is hard to come by in 1955.
Yep.
Love that. I love the Back to the Future reference there. And Bartos mentions that they did not mean to go there. Now, we don't know where Jonas was taking them, the stranger was taking them, but it was not to 1888. And Martha asks about the blind old man. Bartos says that he will show her everything. And we'll see that. But I did think it was interesting what Bartos says about them not meaning to go to 1888, and then also that they traveled the exact moment that everything happened. So then it got me starting to think about the apocalypse that happens in 2020, and maybe it was caused by so many different time events all happening simultaneously.
Yeah, was every time machine active at the time of
That's what it
event? Seems
like. So the machine was going. We had the portal between Elizabeth and Charlotte going. I don't know if we had Martha and Jonas traveling to the alternate world at the same time. We probably had Adam traveling.
Well, I think so, because right after we see that active, we see the house explode.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if the apocalypse had already started and then they traveled. But yeah, it's right around the same time. And then we also had Katarina going through the caves.
Yeah.
So it seems like this all that one machine traveling is fine, but all of these machines traveling at the same time is probably what caused this, which will be something to track because apparently there's going to be an apocalypse in the alternate world in a couple days.
Yep.
And maybe so many machines active is what made their machines send them to a different time than what they were intending.
Yeah.
We don't really know how the machine works. So then out in the lobby, we have the old man. He is talking to the stranger about Martha, asking if she's one of you. And that this old man thought it was a sign from God when they arrived. He tells the stranger, make sure you keep your eye focused on what we are doing here, and that is creating paradise. And then we see his cane says, Sic Mundes, Cretus Est. So he is the one of the founders of Sic Mundes, it seems.
Yep.
This Tannenhouse man. So he is leading the stranger to do what his life's work has been. In 1987, we see Katerina going to the psychiatric hospital, and when she walks in, she clearly recognizes the woman who is working reception. We saw this woman in the last season. Also, she's the one who introduced Ulrich as the inspector. We see her name. I felt like this was like very heavy-handed. Like they probably didn't need to do the focus in on her name tag. I think we could have figured it out from there. But this woman is Helene Albers. Of course, we got Albers as Katerina's maiden name earlier in the episode. So this is Katerina's mother.
Yep.
And she says to Katerina, she's asking to see the inspector. She says, it's my husband. Helene says, you're one of them, which I thought at first was like, oh, she knows about time travel maybe or something. And she says, you're one of those people who goes after prisoners and mental patients because you can't get a man yourself. That's a very strange line to me. And,
yeah, maybe it was supposed to be like tongue-in-cheek calling her a groupie.
So my thought on that is that we don't know who Katerina's father is. And maybe she was projecting her own issues on this woman. And sometime in the last 30 years, probably about 18 years ago, this woman had some sort of affair with Ulrich, and Ulrich is Katerina's father.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but that's good.
That's what that line really set off for me.
Okay. Well, that's a good theory. Yeah. I like it.
And
she's wearing my boy St. Christopher.
She's wearing the St. Christopher coin. So is this the same St. Christopher coin we see a bunch of times, or do you think there's just a couple of them?
Maybe, because I still think at some point Hannah's wearing that coin. I'm still predicting.
Right, which would be in the 50s that she's going to be wearing that.
Yeah. And so maybe in an attempt to save Ulrich, Katerina travels back to the 50s, sees Hannah wearing the coin. It sets her off for some reason.
Oh, and she kills Hannah.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. That could be. Like maybe they try to escape through the caves, and instead of going back to the present, they go back to the 50s.
Yep.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. Because I definitely think we're getting an escape from with Katerina and Ulrich.
They go the wrong way, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and that St. Christopher coin that Helene is wearing looks very new. And of course, when we see it washed up on shore, it's very weathered. So it could even be, maybe we'll see some more of this coin being passed around, but maybe Katerina ends up with the St. Christopher coin, and then somehow Hannah gets it this already happened like in the 2019 time. So yeah, we'll have to watch that, or maybe there's just multiple versions of the coin.
Yeah.
Then Katerina goes to visit. She gets let in because of bringing up the coin. Her mother lets her go in, and I thought this was my favorite scene of the episode because it just did a really good job of building suspense as Katerina is like slowly walking towards Ulrich to sit down with him. And even when she sits down with him, he doesn't even look up right away. It takes a couple seconds for him to look up, and great acting by the man who plays old Ulrich. I thought his face just like melts when he sees his wife there. So both of their dirty hands meet together on top of the chessboard, and she tells Ulrich that she's going to get him out.
Yep.
So we've got to see this kind of escape. I'm curious. We don't know much about Katerina's parents in the 80s. Does Katerina's mom get killed when they're trying to escape, and maybe Katerina's responsible for her mother dying?
That would mirror, Claudia with Egon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm wondering about that. I feel like the Helene Albers of it all. I'm a little worried about her.
Yeah, and we know they don't have a great relationship too. So
No, yeah, exactly. Which we see other mother-daughters that don't have great relationships. So we'll have to keep our eye on that when they do try to escape. We see that red secretary again. She's about to leave the plant, and she goes to the office to turn off all the lights and shut it down. And when she walks in, of course, the three ninjas are in there. I guess she actually goes in because she sees the flashlights. Mm-hmm. More characters led by light, of course. And the three ninjas are in her office. And just like Burned, he said that he would call the police. She says that she'll call security.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle one, the middle-aged one, he pulls out his wire to choke people. And he says, hell is empty and the devils are here.
Mm-hmm. So
if the alternate world is hell, these guys came from the alternate world, that would make sense.
Yep.
And so, R.I.P. to Jasmine. We just learned your name and you're already dead.
Possibly your baby.
And possibly your baby.
Or ill-fitting dress.
Yeah. I think it's probably just an ill-fitting dress. But it would be fun if there was some pregnancy angle. She was the mother of the John Connor who's going to save everybody.
Yeah, perhaps.
Jana, we see her in the 80s. She has a snake bracelet, the snake eating its own tail, it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells Tronte that he has to decide if he's with us or against us, and says Claudia never told us who the father was. And you think that's just too heavy-handed to be the case?
I mean, maybe it's just really telling you. It just seems so much like it's telling you. And then to avoid it, Tronte says, "You're right. I have to decide if I'm with you or." Not.
Right, but he doesn't actually answer. He doesn't say which side he's taking, although he's with her 30 years later. So
he also doesn't say if he's the father.
No, he doesn't say if he's the father. Maybe he wants to believe he's the father because he's so obsessed with her. Maybe the father is somebody else, and
exactly.
And he just wants to believe it so much.
Yeah, it would be a different angle on that whole car ride and why that was so uncomfortable for Regina.
Mm-hmm. And then 2020. We see the 2020 timeline. We see Regina, and we see this time Tronte entering. It's the evening time now, and this was where I was like, oh yeah, see, it's a father and daughter reuniting, but she has no idea. She doesn't call him dad. She calls him Tronte. Mm-hmm. He says it has to happen. She said it's the only way to save you, and of course, everybody knows what's happening here. You can tell what they're setting up. He grabs the pillow and he suffocates Regina to death. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down, Tronte brought her life and brought her death. It's a good circle, but maybe that's not the case.
Yeah.
So Tronte is working under the, more guidance from older Claudia, it seems like. So older Claudia told him basically that Regina has to be killed because that's what always happens, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Or it's the way to he says this is the way to save you. Right,
because I think the way to save, because Claudia is working on resetting everything. Mm-hmm. And the only way for her to be full, maybe it's because she's too distracted taking care of Regina, so she needs Regina to not be there so that her future or her past self can focus on.
Yeah, it's a play on, like a play on what Adam says about not having emotional connections.
Mm-hmm. Because it does seem like she's spending a lot of time like finding these drugs and bringing them to Regina. So, and not having emotional connections, like you said. Mm-hmm. Then we see back in the trailer, Elizabeth and Peter are making dinner. He's making lentil soup for her. And she's just staring at this Noah note that she had. And she wants to know what Noah said to Peter that they weren't signing. Mm-hmm. And she grabs the Sigmundes book that Peter carries around, which clearly has some information. I guess that maybe there's probably information in there about Noah, and that's why he has such a vendetta against Noah.
Yep.
And she pushes him 3 times. And then starts to cry. So it's I wrote down that this was a very sad scene, I felt like, for them.
Yeah.
Especially now that we know Peter is probably dying sometime in the next couple days. It's not a great interaction between them.
He is dying in the next couple days.
Yep. Going into the future, so this is the first we see of 2053 in this season, and we see Charlotte looking at the photo of her parents and her as a baby. She's in the cave with Elizabeth and some other survivors. We're not quite sure who those other people are.
Yep, not yet.
And so I think it's Elizabeth says to Charlotte, "Everything will be okay," which is a phrase we've seen a couple times. I think we saw that in the first episode. Mm-hmm. And we've noted "everything will be okay" as a phrase a couple times on this podcast.
Yep.
Even so much as you thinking that it might be the title of the finale.
Yeah, I still don't know the title of the finale. So
yeah, I really like this too because it's both of them mothering the other one. You know, they're hugging, they're putting their heads together, playing a little game of cranium basically with their heads, and both being each other's mom. So it's a really great connection between the two of them. So any sense of who the other people in the caves are? Do you think it's just other people who survived the apocalypse, or do you think other people traveled with Charlotte into the future or through that portal?
I don't really know. I think that she probably traveled alone.
Yeah. So. I guess especially considering all the bodies that we saw, I don't think there's anybody else who was in that room that might have survived.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think she traveled alone.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we're getting close to the end of the episode now. We've got, in 1987, Katerina is listening to a song called "Is This Love" by Survivor. Of course, this episode is called Survivors, so that's a nice little touch. And her mom walks up behind her and slaps her in the head and is yelling at her to clear the table. It's just like, I don't know if this is her demeanor all the time. It sure seems like it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a play on Magnus and Mikkel from the first episode when he slaps Mikkel on the head.
Yeah.
And then who else slaps? What is it? Bartos that slaps Mikkel when they're in the woods, and then Magnus says only I can slap him or something. Someone slaps Mikkel. Yeah, so that's happened a few times, and they always seem to show it. So I don't know what it's signifying.
Yeah, so she wants her to clear the table. She's very not happy with her.
Yeah.
Then we start seeing, one of our montages. We see Ulrich and Katerina as Katerina is leaving. We see Claudia walking in and seeing her daughter dead, and she drops the flashlight. We see a young Regina being consoled by Alex. We see Trante and Jana. She's asleep on him. We see Elizabeth still looking at that note. We see Noah digging out the cave. We see the stranger going into Martha's room and seeing that she's gone, while Bartos is showing her the Sic Mundez headquarters. So we're getting more of Jonas versus Bartos for Martha's attention.
Mm-hmm.
A
lot of what Bartos says is just like throwing shade on Jonas when he's talking to even all Martha.
Mm-hmm.
Like a big obsession of Bartos is taking down Jonas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but don't you think this is coming from a more genuine place than before?
Maybe. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still the same thing Bartos has wanted from the beginning, is also Martha.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, if Noah is Bartos' son, which we're pretty sure is confirmed, that would mean that Agnes is Bartos' daughter. Agnes is not even this. So if Trante is Regina's father, this is what I was thinking. If Trante is Regina's father, that would mean that Martha and Bartos are cousins because they have the same grandfather.
So the two people are in love with her nephew and her cousin.
Right. Yep.
That's good.
Yeah. And if Bartos is Noah's father as well, Noah is the brother of Agnes, and Agnes is, great grandmother of Martha as well. So Bartos's daughter potentially, and maybe Martha's daughter, is an ancestor of Martha. So
and could Bartos's daughter be Scarface?
I don't think so, because Agnes doesn't have a scar across her face. I think the fact that
Hannah does, or I mean not Hannah, Martha does. Old Martha does.
Does she? I didn't notice it. Not as
Old
pronounced.
Martha,
not as pronounced as that though.
That has the scar right across her face.
Yeah, okay. I think when we find out who Scarface,
like it's maybe healed over time.
Yeah, when we find out whoever Scarface is, it will be somebody with a very prominent scar across her face, much like with Helge, the way we see the
I
scar on
mean,
Helge.
old Martha does have a scar across her face that's just healed over time, similar to the neck wound on Adam. Healing
Yeah,
over time.
but Scarface is basically the same age as Martha also.
Yep.
So really, I just don't think it would work because it's not Martha, even though it looks like her.
Yeah.
Could be related to Martha. I just don't think it's going to be Martha.
I just want to know who Scarface is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, hopefully we find out. I feel like you might be able to throw Scarface in with Waller and Clausen and Bernadette, unfortunately. People who got sacrificed by the episode count.
I don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah. So then we get Bartos showing the Sigmundes room. I don't know what we'll call that, Sigmundes headquarters, which we've seen a couple times. It looks like there's about 20 chairs in there, as well as like a head desk. And Bartos says, Old Tannenhaus is the only one left of Sigmundes. His father was convinced he could change the rules of space and time, and so was his son. And I'm curious, because the way this is phrased, that could mean that Old Tannenhaus's father was trying to change the rules, and Old Tannenhaus's father's son, which would be Old Tannenhaus, was, or it could mean that Old Tannenhaus had both a father and a son who were trying to change the rules of space and time.
Yeah.
So I think it's vague on purpose. And somehow this has got to, I feel like this has got to connect to the Tannenhaus, the HG Tannenhaus. Either he is Tannenhaus's father, or he's this Old Tannenhaus's son, or that's maybe this Tannenhaus we're seeing is a grown-up version of that Tannenhaus.
Yeah, I think that could be it.
Yeah. And Bartos is asking about Adam because Jonas, he said clearly the stranger told Bartos, Magnus, and Francisca that a man named Adam shot Martha and killed her. So he always lived through that. He knows Adam did that. But what the stranger left out is that Adam, this person that he's talking about, is who he will become in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she reveals to Bartos that Adam is Jonas. It's just an older version of Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get our cool transition between the regular world and the alt world. It's a little bit different this time, but it works to differentiate between time travel and world travel. And so we get a close-up of old Martha, alternate old Martha, who I think from now on we can refer to her as Eve, if you're good with that.
That's fine.
Yeah, and she says, we don't know the end, but the end knows us. And where Adam had that picture of all of the souls leaving the Titan, that painting that he had, she has two paintings next to each other, one of Adam and one of Eve, with the serpent going into the Eve photo.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a character chart on each side, one with Jonas's time and one with her time. They kind of line up below the Adam and Eve. So it's almost like when you go to a wedding and they ask you, like, bride or groom, you have Jonas' side, you have Martha's side. And they stand side by side right below the Adam and Eve pictures. So it's like very like on the nose. This is Adam and Eve. That's what we're supposed to call them. And we see that character chart, which we talked a lot about in the beginning of the episode. Both have Agnes right near the center connected to the Infinity Line. So maybe Agnes is not really Noah's sister, and Agnes was like a world traveler, or maybe the first, like if your idea of twins, maybe Agnes is the first twin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I guess our Magnus and Agnes theory that we had in the feedback show. Maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah. So we get the character chart from like a big bird's eye view. Every time I'd pause it, the Netflix menu would pop up over it, so I couldn't really look at it for too long, which is probably a good thing, really. But I was able to get it looks like that Hanno Tuber is Bartos' son with Silja. That was like the big thing that I saw. I don't think there was anything else that was like confirmed in here, but we'll see. They converge in the middle, and Eve is talking about how the apocalypse happened in his time and everybody died. The apocalypse will happen here in 3 days. So we got that number 3 again.
Yep.
So it's hard to know when that actually is, because she met Jonas on November 4th. And so I don't know if this is still the night of November 4th or if this is a day later. So 3 days after that would be either November 7th, or if it's a day later, November 8th. So, yeah, it doesn't seem like the episodes are going day by day for the alternate world. So maybe the 3 days in the alternate world will actually take the full season to get to, or maybe that's something we'll see in 3 episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't say the date, I think, for a reason.
Yeah. So, but in 3 days, the apocalypse is going to happen. Now, maybe that means that there's going to be a whole bunch of time travel all happening at once in this alternate world, and that's what's going to cause the apocalypse.
Yeah, definitely could be.
Mm-hmm. And that is the end of the episode. Did you have anything else on the episode itself that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't. I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah, pretty much. Lots of detail. All right, so let's get into our. Do you want to do feedback first or MVP first?
Let's do MVP.
MVP. All right, go for it. Who is your MVP for this episode?
I'll go ahead and give it to Katarina. I feel
Damn
like
it.
she's finally starting.
I knew you were going to take mine.
Yeah, I mean, she points out my boy St. Christopher, so she's finally doing some things. Like, it seems like she's really becoming like more of a player here, meaning that she's heading towards a tragic end, I think, which is going to be ending up locked up in the mental hospital with Ulrich. So she's going to end up with Ulrich forever, but in the mental hospital.
I think that's an interesting. I think that's an interesting theory on what happens to her. I still think they're going to escape and she's going to end up killing her mother, but maybe that's what gets her locked up in the mental institution.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I knew you were going to take mine. Now I have to come up with somebody else to get the MVP point too.
Or you can vote for the same one if she deserves it.
We've never given it to the same person. So let's see. I could think of somebody else to give it to. I guess if maybe I can't think of somebody else, I'll give it to Bartos. Bartos is telling Martha some information, so yeah, I'll give it to Bartos. I guess.
I think it's okay to give the MVP to the same person, honestly, if they deserve it.
All right, fine. You've convinced me. Because Katarina was like the only one who really stood out as the MVP in this episode to me.
Yeah, you could give it to Old Man in the Hat.
Which old man? Oh, Tannenhouse? Old man Tannenhouse?
Old Man Tannenhouse. I mean, he seems like he knows a lot.
Yeah. Just Sick Mundez overall. They get it's like a team MVP.
He's got a really nice cane with the Sick Mundez logo right on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. Katarina, congratulations. You have taken the lead for the season 3 MVP rankings. Katarina has 2 MVP points. The 3 ninjas have 1, and Alt Martha has 1 as well.
Yep.
All right, let's get into some feedback real quick. We got a couple emails on episode number 2. Adrian Colley, he has a couple questions for us that he sent in. The first question, so what does middle-aged Jonas, the stranger, remember of original Martha's murder? If he doesn't remember being rescued, then what does he remember? Was he among the survivors? Did he pursue Adam? Or did he travel between worlds and not realize it?
Good question. I don't know how he would travel between worlds and not realize it.
Unless he forgot, but I think that's I don't think that would be
I have to
what
think
happened.
he was a survivor and went after Adam.
You think he went after Adam?
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if he went after Adam, but I think that probably he was not rescued by Altworld Martha, and so he just maybe went to the basement of that house or somewhere to survive that blast and not be killed, and then grew up, like he couldn't travel, so that's why he became the stranger, because then he spent the next 33 years trying to figure out how to prevent this from happening and get a new time machine. The other one, he also said, whatever happened to Adam? He walked out of the murder scene taunting Jonas to stop him, and then what?
I would assume he's into Altworld.
You think Adam is in the Altworld?
I would think I don't know. I would think maybe I would think he follows Martha there. Alt Martha.
Okay. I just figured he travels back to his original time, like the 20s, which we've not seen the 20s, we've not seen the 50s yet, so that's where I thought he went.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to some other questions. So Brendan Fitzpatrick wrote in, and he says, what do you guys think it means that Agnes was the starting connector point branching out from the middle of the 2 worlds? He thinks maybe it means that Agnes traveled from the mirror world to Jonas's world and that she was the very first starting point.
So she's the beginning?
That's what Brendan thinks.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I really don't know. I haven't put too much thought into that timeline.
Yeah. So I definitely think Agnes is going to be very important, and we have not gotten any Agnes yet this season. But even the Netflix menu, like when you select the episode, it shows that part of the character chart with Agnes and the infinity sign between it for the whole season of Dark. So, and I was glad that we got that early enough because I was like kind of annoyed that I saw that. So there's something with Agnes, and it doesn't seem like that character chart shows any lineage. Maybe Agnes is the first person to travel between worlds, and that's why she is that. But I would assume we're going to find out soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then Walter Prager, he says that we pronounce Tannhaus wrong. He says you call it Tannenhouse like Biff Tannen, but it's just Tannhaus. So, yes. The two of us, we have our particular mispronunciations. It just kind of happens. Like, yes, we call him Jonas, and it is pronounced Jonas.
Yeah. This is why we're not the official Dark.
So Walter also says, you are assuming that Stranger Jonas is having no memory of Alt Martha is due to changes, but it has been drilled into us that nothing changes. I still don't know why Stranger Jonas is clueless, but could it be that there are more than two worlds, and maybe there will be a Jonas in the Alt world, and maybe time traveling affects your memory? Who knows?
I mean, Helge has dementia.
Right. Michael was drugged, and I think the fact that Michael doesn't realize is part of, like, he had to have been drugged so much that he forgot his origin. So, yeah, and then I do like that he brings up more than two worlds, because we've talked so much about the number 3. You know, we only have 2 worlds. Could there be a third world that we aren't considering?
No, that seems to be what everybody calls paradise.
Oh, the paradise is the third world.
Mm-hmm.
Right, interesting. Okay, I like that theory. All right, so that wraps up our feedback. We did our MVPs. Our next episode is called Adam and Eve. Very fitting. What do you have any predictions based on that name for what we're going to see?
Is it called Adam and Eve or Adam and Eva?
I thought it said Adam. I thought it said Adam and Eve, but maybe it's Adam and Eva.
I think it says Adam and Eva.
Okay.
With an A at the end of it. But if that's the case, since Adam and Eva, I think that we're about to see how things still aren't quite right. I don't think it was Adam and Eve.
Oh, maybe I just assumed that it was Adam and Eve. And it's all right. Well, or maybe
I didn't look at it too closely, because I didn't. I can pull it up though. Yeah, I can pull it up though. But right. I think either way, it's going to be a lot of the Stranger with Alt Martha, you know, and trying to figure out how they fill the roles of Adam and Eve, I think, in this world.
So I think the 2 timelines that we have not yet gotten are 1921 and 1955. So we need to see what's going on in those 2 timelines, which means in 1921.
And it is Adam and Eva.
It's Adam and Eva. Okay, interesting. So things are a little bit off. It's not quite Adam and Eve. So yeah, so it's basically like it's Adam and Eve. What do you call that? Yeah, so I think we're got to get some of the 1920s. We got to get the 1950s as well. So I think we're going to see Adam returning to 1921 after killing Martha. We're going to see what has been going on there for the last 6 months. And I think we're going to have 6 months of Hannah and Egon being together as well. We need to check in with them. And we can't wait too long to get Agnes. So I think we're getting some Agnes in one or both of those timelines as well. Seems like the episode 3s have always been pretty big on this show, though. Can't remember exactly what happened in each of those episode 3s. Let's see if I can pull anything up real quick. But I know the Michael reveal was episode 4 of season 1. So let's see. Season 2, episode 3 was Ghosts. And that was where we started getting the White Devil stuff. And we see Claudia traveling for that was when Claudia traveled for the first time, was in episode 3 of season 2. And episode 3 of season 1 is where that's when we first get the 80s. So that's when we first get Mikkel in the 80s. And when we see Egon in the 80s as well, investigating the sheep. And HG starting the machine. So the season 3 or episode 3s have been pretty big.
Yep.
This is season 3, episode 3. I would think this is going to be huge.
Yeah.
All right. So that wraps up our discussion of season number 3, episode 2, The Survivors. If you have any feedback for us, definitely email us, digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. Include the episode number in the subject line for the email as well. And we'll be sure to talk about it if you have feedback on this podcast or on episode 3 itself. Either one. Definitely write in and let us know, and we will do our best to get to it. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk about Adam and Eva, episode number 3 of season 3. You also can follow us on Twitter. I'm at BrooksZA.
And I'm Aaron J.A.Y. Brooks.
All right, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. Anything else that you want to say about this episode?
No, I think that these two are going to be much more the setup. I think we're getting a lot more action from here on out. And I think that I'm just preparing myself for similar kind of reveals to how the Albers reveal was and Katarina's mom was. So just maybe a little bit of an increased pace on some reveals that maybe I'm used to being a little more slowly delivered. But just a little bit of an adjustment. But I think it's going to really start ramping up here.
Yeah, I think we're getting one more setup episode, and then we're going to, episode 4, we're going to really ramp up. And maybe after episode 4, we'll have a reason to stop and do a feedback show. We'll see. We'll see if we want to stop and take a day off. So, all right. Well, thanks, everybody. We will see you tomorrow on June 29th on Monday to talk about episode number 3, Adam and Eva.
See you soon.